what's the most difficult part of applying for funding? Aside from keeping track of all the information, I think it's writing those sections of applications that are, repetitive for every grant, all based on the same information. So I think the coolest thing about this tool is that it lets you reuse sections from other applications, but update them using AI based on the current application. So here we are within an application we're drafting. You can see the program we're applying for is this um, workshops that we deliver to artists. And here we have one section completed already for this application. If I just say select sections, maybe I need to add this diversity section. So you can see here it's in a different funding application, right? We're working in this workshops for artists. This is over in this test one. I can add it to this application now, and here it is. Now, if I open it up, again, I can see now this section, it's been copied over and made a new copy for this application. I can select the resources that I want to use. So let's say I don't care about using my headquarters. I just want mission, vision statement, and maybe the year established. Then now I can draft the section and it's going to recreate that section based on the requirements of the funder for diversity and the resources that I identified here, as well as like the program information, the grant application information, and a bunch of other good stuff. So the cool thing there is it kind of makes your application smart, where you have the ability to draft these sections, reuse them, apply them in new contexts, and always keep them up to date. In addition, you get, I think, some pretty sort of standard stuff, ability to manage your grants across the calendar based on their deadlines. You have a database of funders and their grants. And I mean, clicking into these grants, you can see the description, outcomes, that sort of thing, funding applications you've applied for. And here's where you maintain your various program and resource information. So you can add absolutely anything here as a resource, and it's available to you to pull in to draft those sections as you need to. So yeah, stop starting from scratch. Don't start from scratch. That's sort of the key here. And this tool developed out of a workshop that I was delivering through Business and Arts NL, where people were saying some of these are their biggest pain points around operationalizing their funding applications and the work of their nonprofits. So, yeah, happy to receive any comments. If you're interested in something like this, reach out. And yeah, take care. Good luck with your funding. Okay, funding applications. So we're starting with a bit of head start, bit of pre-work done. Have some funders table, funding applications, resources. That's about it though. Okay, so instead of maybe I'll still coda.new. Okay. Now, because this stuff already exists, let's add to doc. Copy to doc. Funding applications. We'll take everything. Okay, so now this stuff is in here. Where are the base tables? Base tables. So, OS funders. I see. These were like the high level pages. Funding applications, funders. Maybe I'll make this an about page. This will be the back end. And I need my little hide blindfold person. I can delete this, and everything below here. All right, so as for backend tables, let's make a DB funders table, DB meaning database, DB grants table, DB funding applications. Okay, and where are we? Backend. Right, so DB funders goes here. Funding applications can go here. Oh, we've got resources. And just want to rename that to DB. Okay. Resource and link, and maybe a description column. And the point of this was just to have these things kind of on hand when we want to be able to refer to them. Okay. I wonder if I can do a canvas. It's like an embed. Let's say I'm not going to worry about that. That's a distraction. Excuse me. Okay, so few things most important here. One, really want to track when these things are due. Okay, so we have funders here and we have their grants. This should be grants. Did I not? Okay, so there's no page, no table for that yet. So what we'll do is we'll take this column, get rid of the formatting, and just convert it to a table. And this is going to be DB grants, and it's going to be here for now, and then over in grants. Okay, so what we've got is a funder, and our name, I'll just say funder. This could be, I mean, this could be an entire CRM on its own, so I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. Objectives now, I think, no longer need to be there. They would belong, I think, with the grants instead. But what else do we need for funders? It'd be nice to have their website. Okay, so we can quickly refer them to have Canada Council for the Arts here, so we can use that as a. Oh, I better close this, or I'm going to continue to click in my mistake. Okay, so now we've got their website. We want, what else do we want? Maybe a little description. Make it a canvas so we can put some more information in there, but I'll say description or like about. Because it can be helpful to go to these pages and pull some sort of stock information about who the players are. All right, that's centered. We could change that. Okay, and that's probably good for now, because what we're really concerned with, even the primary contact doesn't quite make as much sense here. That's more likely to be over in funding applications. So I am going to do a DB contacts table. I'll keep it pretty simple. Name, and we'll say, I'll do it here, funders. Okay, I'll leave off multiple selections for now. I'll turn it on. Okay, funders. So who do we have over in the funders? I had primary contact Joe Finley. So now what I'm going to do is change primary contact to lookup to contacts. There it is. Okay, single lookup, and what I can do in contacts is say this is Joe Finley. I probably want to know the person's role, maybe their email. Maybe I like to call people, so I'll put their phone number. Okay, we'll leave that. So Joe is a program, no, grant administrator and works for Canada Council for the Arts. Okay, and we can put, this would be, I'll use mine at, let's see, don't spam me please, and 709 555 5555. Okay, and then I'm going to delete these extra rows. So now I've got my contacts. Go back to this funders. My primary contact for this is going to be Joe. Okay, now for these grants, I want some information. So one will be like a date we'll call application deadline. I'm actually going to call it date of application deadline. Nope, I'm going to call it deadline for application. Okay. The reason I'm trying to figure it out is because depending on what you call it, it's easier or harder to find it when you're trying to create formulas and things later. So it's got to be something like I like to start with date because then I'll just, I just know if I'm looking for the date of something, I can start by typing date and it'll pop up. Um, okay. So are these grants accurate, first of all? Well, I think when we were talking about it at this workshop with business and arts, yes, explore and create, engage and sustain. Okay, so let's put in say text description. Okay, and this is just something light, right? Like nice and easy like this. If I click on learn more, what do I get here? Okay, which one is this? Explore and create. Okay, and I might also put in here, and this is something that would require a lot more thought if you have a framework that you use, but for now, we'll just take the outcomes and plop them down in here as well. Great. The deadline, I don't know if they tell us right now. Program components, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on here. This is why it's so difficult to apply for grants when you're a nonprofit with limited staff. Every one of these programs has this much information about it. Excuse me. So they need you to apply here. Well, we are not going to do that, but what are in these? Okay, so grant limit, that makes sense, right? So um, what do I want to say here? Currency, which is the, what do they call it? Grant amount. amount, and we'll say $10,000. And what did I make this currency? Yeah. What I'm realizing is that it's like this is explore and create professional development for artists. So it's like saying explore and create might not make sense here. This might be explore and create uh, professional development for artists. All right, we need to be as specific here as they are for this to be worthwhile. So I don't know what the deadline is. Oh, deadlines and notification results page. Multiple deadlines. All right, I expect this is project grants, research and creation, professional development. All right, so anytime before the start date or until April 9th. Okay, so let's put this in here as April, oh, April 9th. And I'm going to add another one. Research and creation is March 19th. So it was research and creation. Yeah. Okay. And this one we'll say is March 19th. And that's really just so that we can get, on our main page, a calendar going. And we'll do grants. And put it as a calendar. And calendar display, we want deadline for application. That's fine. Okay, so, well, great. We have nothing for December, so March 19th. And for some reason, look at that. Why is that doing? How far does that go? Oh, forever. I've never seen Coda do that before. If I say none, that does it. Okay. So we've got our calendar, our grants. This one now, I mean, it probably makes sense to put a little bit more of the description of the actual grant in here now, because part of what I want to do is use AI. Okay, use AI to do some of the drafting for us. So I'm going to insert a column after that's called activities, because I think this is probably going to be pretty common. So it's like, what can you apply for? Oh. Put those in the wrong spots. Okay. We've got activities, and I mean, I don't really think I want to put who can apply bit. It's really like you should be checking this out and saying, am I one of these people? And if I'm not eligible, then you go all out and include excuse me, eligibility and whatnot, but we're not going to get into that right now. So I think we're good there. I guess because I've done it for one, I should probably do it for the other one we have. No, there it is, research and creation. If that happens, if you paste something and it goes across a whole bunch of rows, just Control Z, double click, paste it inside the box. Sometimes Coda is guessing if you're trying to paste a bunch of rows in, and so it looks at the line breaks and it says, oh, if there's a line break, then this must be something new, and I'll put it on a new row, and then you're yeah, occupied. Okay, so what's the grant amount for this? Up to 25,000. Woohoo! 25,000. All right. So we have the grants. We've got the funder in here, which means that when I go up to who my funders are, I can say one thing that might be nice is like um, for funders, we'll do a count of the grants. And then I'm going to make a compose column that says at grants count grants. Oh, this is grant count display. And I need to go back and delete that. Yeah, there we go. Then on my funders cards here, I can bring that column in. Great. I can see who's got grants here. And I mean, probably what I want to do is say, here's the funders. We want to actually bring in our funding applications, right? So here we've got, I'm just going to get rid of these two extra funding applications. This is our funder. So if we go to the edit column and create a reverse linked column, then now on my funders page, I've got my applications. Okay, so this one can be selected from either end. I could say I've only got one, but I can choose it here and it'll say, well, this is a funding application for this grantee. But now I can do the same sort of thing. Actually, okay, this brings up something else. So take off objectives here because what's important is not funding applications. This is a good question. So do I want, I don't think this is what I want here. I think I want it in grants instead, right? So the grants is looking up to, or the funding applications is looking up to the grants. All right, it's like what grant are we applying to? And then we want to create a column. Okay. All right, that makes more sense. Excuse me, because now what we can do is we don't have to identify the funder on here. Get rid of that. Ah, vector references the column in the following places. Primary contact. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that's fine. We can get rid of that. We'll get rid of the primary column. Our primary funder, we'll get rid of the funders bit because now what we can do is say, well, this grant is for this, sorry, this application is for this grant, and now I can pull in the related columns to say the, where's the funder? Does grants not have funders? Oh boy, it doesn't. Okay. Well, it'd be nice to be able to identify who funds the grants, right? So the funder should come right after the grant. And the funder is Canada Council for the Arts. All right, so now if I go back to funders, this grants column, no, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going backwards. Delete that. We're going to go to funders and take the grants we've already got and create the column from there because I've already created these formulas here and I don't want to mess that up. So now I could take this one, funder. All right, great. Okay, so here within the grant is probably where I'm most interested in having the primary contact. All right. There may be a primary contact for the overall funding agency, but this is where I really care about having a primary contact, right? Because that person is going to help me um, get the grant. So here it's what I say? Oh, Jinley. Okay, and from here we can pull in their email if we want, but I don't think we need to because probably what I can do is pull that into the view of the grant, just show all their information as a table. So um, funding applications. I don't have any applications in play for this grant, right? So now going back to funders, I can see is they have two grants, and I could also now pull in from funding applications. I have the grant, which means I can bring in if I want the funder. I think instead what I'll do is I'll go to funders and I'll say applications. Oh, silly. These grants, I can just pull in applications from here. All right, there we go. There's one application. And what I am probably more interested in is what is the status? Here's successful. I probably don't want successful as a check mark. It's probably easier to have a status because then what we can do edit column is create a board view progress. What am I up to? Done. Blocked. Great. All right, because now in funding applications, instead of I'm going to delete that. I guess done doesn't really make sense. It's more like submitted. And then add option is won and lost. I don't know, won and lost. Okay, oh, and we probably want to make a default for the new, right, is not started. Okay, so now every new application, call this drafting, Maybe we want another option in here. You gotta be careful with too many status options, but in this case, we probably do want to say that it's in review. Okay, so it starts off as not started. Now on funding applications, this is what I was trying to say and got distracted from, is we can do this as a board view and group not by resources but by status and show empty groups. All right, so now we can see okay, hide that header. Great. Now we've got a view of our applications here. And what's next? Where do we leave off? We've got these funders. That's fine. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. In this funders thing where it says 2 grants. Um, wow, there's a bunch of stuff you could do where it was like, oh, it's, upcoming or due soon or something like that. But, you might put on here how many applications you have in progress for each grant type. So this is funding applications. You could change, let's do a count here, number, um, applications in progress. Pre-submission, we'll say that, and just say equals and look up to funding applications and then filter that where status does not equal um, submitted. One or lost. And then I want to count that. Right? So then we'd say, and I'm getting kind of off track here, so I got to stop what I'm doing. But applications pre-submission display. And then I'll just make this another compose column and say apps pre-submission at applications pre-submission. And funders. Right. Back to funders. I need to pull that in here. Right. Where did I just do that? Hmm. Well, now I'd have to go to funders and just pull that in from here. Yeah, that was a mistake on my part. What I would really want to do is say, is have both of those columns be on this funders page. For now, what I'll do is just bring in the sum of the applications that are in pre-submission. And then I'm just going to abandon it because this is just taking too much time. So Um, it's showing resources on here, which doesn't really help us. But that might be nice for funding applications to show the actual grant um, on a page. But probably what we really want to show there on that page is the grant deadline, right? So if we add the deadline to this table, then on our funding applications view, we want to put the deadline. All right, so now for something a little more interesting. When I think about trying to prepare applications, the stuff that's hard is keeping track of all of your um, sort of essential information and always having to refer back to that. And so that's one of the things. The other thing is like duplicating information, right? It's like everybody's asking a similar thing about your programs, and so you're constantly rewriting the same sort of statements to fit what the new funder is asking for. So we want to make both of those things easier. To do that, this resources page, now that we have this description, I might actually also put a canvas column here, which is like the details. And then in that case, if it's not an external resource, we could actually put it uh, right here. I'm actually going to get rid of the, I think that's better. Okay. Um, so it's like, what are the things that we're constantly, I have a cheat sheet up here of the things that we're constantly being asked for. So you might say legal name, and the details are warning strategy. Okay, that one's easy. Operating name, if it's different, our registration number, and that might be like, oh, I'll just put a bunch of numbers. Year established, 2022. Our mission statement, help artists make their art by providing operational tools. Help artists focus on making their art by providing operational tools that simplify their businesses. Okay, that's an awkward one. Vision statement, if they ask for that. Um, Artists make art, not drown in administrative work. That's my vision. Let's see. So we've got headquarters, St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada, and let's say legal status. Okay, I am actually, I'm not going to say I'm a sole proprietor, so I'll say I'm a for-profit. All right, and what else do I have here? Our contact information. That's going to be different for, I think, you've got your mailing address, that kind of thing. But I mean, we could put all of that sort of stuff in here for resources. But I think what I'm more interested in is just having a place where all of that stuff exists. So, I mean, you could do it on a page if you wanted, right? Where instead you could be like, here's a call out and say organizational information, and then just like kind of copy all this stuff. Right, just didn't work. You could do it like year established and that kind of thing. Headquarters. But now I can't access that formulaically, right? When it just sits on the page, there's nothing I can do with it. But if for whatever reason what I want to get is the year established, then look what I can do here. I can just say equals at year established dot details, and I've just pulled in like this information wherever I want it. Or within an application, what I could do is say, well, here's my resources, and I can pre-populate for an application the resources that I think are most important. All right, so it's like, let me try to give it some more space here. Let's say legal name, registration number, year established, all this stuff we think is going to be asked on every application. Then I can just push it in, and then every time I make a new one, that just pops up there as resources, okay? And I mean, it doesn't look like it's a big help here because just the names of things. But when I open this row, I'll choose this one actually because it's got more information in it. So again, clicking on this like open button just pulls all of this stuff that's attached to the record into a view for you. So over here is probably where I'd want to do it, is say, well, what do we want that view to look like? I'll call this the funding application main view. Okay, so now what you can see, it's done it automatically, but it's pulled in the resources here uh, now as a table. So deadline status, probably put the status up to the top, and the grant and the deadline like that. Sorry, I recognize that I tend to do this thing where I start a sentence and then get distracted building, but I mean that's where we are. So the nice thing here is that for every new application you create, you can see that all that stuff is there now, and I mean there's some tricks that we can do with it if we want, such as add it to the um, add it to our draft of the funding application when the time comes. So let me just focus on this here for a second. Wrap text. Okay. All right. So that's all there. That's nice. Kind of gives us a view of our resources. But I mean, really, I think what's pretty exciting about this is the ability to streamline the way that we apply by capturing information from the previous application. So one way to do that could be just to put in application canvas column, right? Application. I'll say draft application. Okay, I'm not going to make it appear on here because this is going to be a giant column, right? But now opening up edit layout, and we have the draft application here. Okay, so now within this, I probably want it above the resources. Yeah. Now I can just start writing like morning strategy was founded. See, I could do that, but one of the cool things would be to add this information directly using a button. And I mean, I'll come back to that, but um, again, this is one way to do this with this draft application and just sort of type into it directly. But I mean, that's not a lot better than more efficient, better, easier for people, especially for collaborating. It's not a lot better than just using a Google Doc. So we want to go a couple of steps further. Okay, so I think one of the things that we haven't really talked about is our own programs, right? Because chances are we're not just applying for like operational funding, we're probably applying for a specific program that we have. And here, what are we going to say about the program? For now, let's just put a description in. This program description. Okay, so these are our programs. This is the stuff that we do as an organization. It's like, now what? Now, how do we want to use this within our funding application? Well, probably in part, we want to select what programs we're going to um, refer to or apply for funding for this grant. Okay, so we bring that programs thing in, and now we've got the abilities to select this. So let's name a couple of these. Actually, let me take a quick look at this grant. Career growth of artists by encouraging participation, development, funds, professional advancement of artists. Okay, so to pay someone to help you with the application process. Workshops. Cool. Okay, so one of our programs then is to okay. And this is what I did with Business and Arts Newfoundland just last week. So it looks like that might actually be eligible for this program where filter skills. Depends. Maybe they just mean um, maybe they want you to be a better artist, not a better business person. But I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. So programs, workshops, um, consulting, uh, help artists identify operational needs, and then speaking. So speak at conferences on topics relevant to artist enhancement. That's offensive. Support. Okay, so these are my three programs, and now within the funding application, I can select which program. So maybe this is my workshops that I'm applying for. And again, from here, once we open this up, you can now see if I bring it into the layout, programs, and it's here. So I've got my resources and programs. I probably want to actually to be a lot higher up, probably above the draft, because that's like and it's pretty central to what I'm doing here, is saying like, what's the name of the application, status, the grant, the deadline, and what program am I actually applying for? So the other thing I do here is drag that out and wrap the text. And if you don't want people to be able to add new ones from here using this sort of drop down thing, I don't know why you wouldn't. You can hide that through the options, but okay. So here we are. Now, what do we want to do? So there's sort of two ways to go about it. If you wanted to, I mean, this might be enough for you. You might just want to look at your calendar and say, oh, we have to apply for this um, grant here. And it's like, what's the grant? Well, now we can edit this view and say, oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, here's, the grant that we're applying for. And right, the deadline is fast approaching and we haven't started the grant yet. So I better, get on that. Or maybe it's enough to just be able to see what applications you have and, whether you've won or lost them. And you could pretty easily have a dashboard here that said funding applications, and let's add a filter to this, add a filter where the status is either submitted, won, or lost. And then we can make it a chart. And we'll make it a pie chart. Let's try that. So what this lets you do is say, well, if we have, I'll just make a couple of dummy ones. So here's one that's one. Here's one that is lost. And I'll do another one. And we'll say this one for now is submitted. Nice. Not the reveal that I was hoping for. Title status. Oh, that's why a category just needs to be status. All right. And then I can change, my colors and such and see. So it's like just a quick view now of my application status. And if I didn't want to, build this filter right in, I could instead put the filter bar on and say status. If it's getting too cluttered, just say, well, maybe I'm just interested in one loss. I could see those. All right. Okay. So that alone is maybe handy. You can, again, follow up on each one of your um, funders to see, what I'd probably do here is bring grants up quite a bit to the top. And you might want to sort this by application deadline. Okay, and again, if these don't look right, you just wrap the text. Often though, it'll just be too much information for this to be useful. So what I might do is remove one of these, maybe just a description, and then add the open expand row button. So then it's like, oh, you can come in, see candidate council for the arts, see which grants they have, and then just open them from there. Right, and now you're into your view of your grants, and you can see all the information about those, your applications that are in progress. Okay, so here's this professional development for the arts, and I can see my funding application in progress there. All right, so that alone might be pretty handy for you, but I'm again interested in this use of AI for various purposes. So let's try. How much time have we spent already? 52 minutes. Okay. Um, One thing that we can do, which might be helpful, is call this DB sections, DB application sections. Uh, and these would be the sections of a funding application. Okay. Because if we want to have any sort of useful drafting ability, then I mean, it makes sense to have the AI draft a specific section rather than, um, section of an application rather than try to draft the whole thing. Um, so I'm trying to, I've got a second monitor set up and I'm trying to find the best way to arrange myself here. Um, because again, these resources now, it might not make as much sense to have the resources on the funding application page, but it might make sense to have them on the applications section page where you say resources, um, and it should be a multi-select. All right, because let's say, I think I've got it here. Right. Um, so this was one of those grants. Artistic Catalysts. Is there one for the one that we were looking at? Application form. I don't remember where I got this from. But basis of the assessment, right? So they're actually telling you just, I mean, what, like most applications will, they'll tell you what they want you to tell them. So the context section, I might copy this. And how do we want to? So the deal is, I probably have to talk about the context of my organization in a lot of different applications. So I don't want to do this over and over. What I want to do is just to say context and say it once. I don't want to say it a dozen times. But how do we do it? I think what we need is these sections to be specific, not just to the funding application. No, that should be enough, right? Because the funding application also has attached to it the grant, right? So that's pulled in automatically. So if we're talking about the context for this grant, then the description, so it's like the, what would you call that? Requirement, I guess. Nope. Did I not copy it? Oh, they're not going to let me copy because I don't have a copy of Word. Yeah, that sucks. What can I do here? What can I do? Oh, did that do it? Let's see if I can get it now. Really, still I can't copy. Most features are disabled. What can I do? I wonder if I can here. I'm just gonna. This is fun. So this is one thing I like ChatGPT for. So if I take a screenshot of this and off screen, I'm just gonna paste this into a window and say reproduce the text from this image. Okay, and it's working on it. It's very slowly. I don't know why. There we go. Okay. Thank you, ChatGPT. Oh, describe your organ. Okay, so let's say what we're doing now is we're inside of our application, and instead of just having one giant draft application section, and I'm going to take the resources off of here too, what we have are sections of an application. Okay, and combined, those sections would make a draft application. So application sections, the section is context. I don't need to see the funding application column because I'm already in the funding application. So I can hide that. I know what the grant is, so I can hide that. What I want to see is the requirement. Maybe. And then my resources. Okay, so provide the context in which your organization pursues historical or cultural content. Context. Okay, so they're talking about mission vision. I'm just going to go easy here and say I want to add the legal name, my mission statement, vision statement, actually year established, head, that's it. Okay, so I'm going to pretend like that set of information is enough to answer this question. And now what we'll do is have a button. What I want is AI to answer this for me based on what they're asking for and what I have said I am. Okay, so um, let's see here. This button is just going to refresh an AI column. Okay, so this is draft, draft the section. And now I'm going to make a text column that is the um, details. Okay, AI. Let's see what we can do here. In the AI section, we'll do a custom prompt, and what we want is to say um, draft the at section, which is the title of the section, draft the section for this funding application. Based on the following information. Requirements for this section, colon, we'll say at requirement. Maybe I'll number list this one. Oh, shift enter. No, it won't. Every time I hit enter, yeah, that's silly. Maybe I'll just take the period out then. One. Okay, here we go. Requirements for this section. Two. My organization's information. And I'll say equals resources, but that's not going to work. Okay, so here's a trick that we need to do. For every one of these resources, what we actually need is a column in resources that's going to summarize the information. So I'd make this a compose, and it would be at resource colon at details. And this we'll call summary for AI. All right, so now what we've got is an easy way to just pull in the information that we have about this thing. And of course, these ones that don't have details that are just in links, I don't know, you won't be able to do it unless you reproduce the content over here, sort of. But probably what I do over here is www. Okay. So where were we? We were on the funding application itself. No, we were on the sections. And what happened to my AI? Oh, there we go. Details and draft section. Okay. So edit AI. And now instead of resources, what I want to say is equals resources dot summary for AI. Okay, so now that's going to bring that in separately. And what's the context section for this one? I want this to be type text. All right, let's just see what happens here. Okay, it needs a little bit more. It's not really doing it here. So I'm going to say you are a funding application writer. Please draft that would be context section for this funding application based on the following information. Please draft a section for the funding application titled section. Oh god. I'll say using the following information. The funder's requirements for this section of the app. I'll just leave that out. So we're still really not getting So I want to refresh. This button is really just clicking the refresh for this. But I don't want to be told every time it does it. So shut that off. Okay, what in the world are you doing? Coda AI is not getting it. You are a funding application writer. Please draft a section for a funding application titled blah using the information below. Write the draft as a narrative using professional prose. I don't know. Here is the relevant information. Okay, now we got something. And so another thing I might say for the requirement, instead of putting a limit on here, auto, I'll say, um, see, as soon as I take that off, it gets messy. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it for now because it is kind of working, right? So now we'll say draft section. We'll put a little pencil and do blue. Okay, and by shutting off the auto refresh, that means that it's going to require us to use this first. So if I delete this and I start making changes here, it's like, oh, now I added a new resource here. I want you to use my headquarters. If I don't have that auto refresh shut off, it's just going to keep updating. But this time, now it's going to wait. It's going to let me draft that separately. Beacon of support and innovation. That's beautiful. Beautiful language. Okay, so now you can see when I open up my funding application, I've got my section here, and probably what I want to do is reduce the columns I've got. I don't really want to be doing all this work right in here. It's probably better if I say keep it to the output, okay? And then when it's time to add a new one, I can just add new and open that up. Do I not have a? I don't. Okay. This section is going to be huge and up top and with a label. And I want to see that. I want to see that and that and the requirement and the resources. All right, so the order would be first, I want to see the section. This is the application. This is the grant. The requirements I can paste in. Then it's the resources that I'm going to use, and then it's the draft the section. All right, I'm not Let's call this application section main layout. All right, okay, so the next section is, let's try this again. Report on past cycle, upcoming program. Here we go. This is fun. Let's see. This is a good test too of the current state of at least Coda AI. Oh, I did it again. Totally forgot. I bet someone out there saw that as a looming problem as I have to take that, push it up into ChatGPT and say, do it again for this pick. Okay, and then let it go. So if I go back to my requirement, so the requirement is there. What resources do I want to use? Probably because I don't really have very many resources in here. Be nice if I had some sort of statement about my um, like DI efforts or something, but instead we'll just do the mission and vision, and I'll put the headquarters in for fun too. Actually, now, since these resources are like this, in this case, I might not want to see resources as a table. It might be easier just to select those as a list, right? It's just a little bit easier to see when I'm selecting what ones I want. And I probably want to also, where am I? I can't get down. There we go. Let's sort it. Okay, bylaws. Okay, that's a little bit easier to find the stuff I'm looking for. Okay, and now that's great. The only other thing I might do in this details section, at the risk of overloading the AI, I might say the uh, funders' anticipated outcomes for this grant. Actually, well, I've got a bunch of stuff. So the grant I'm applying for, and we'll say at grant. And we'll say, we'll leave it there because I think I need to do another grant, another summary thing here, right? Where I say compose um, at grants, and then it's at this description, at description. I probably want to say, what else do I have here? I can't get over. Um, outcomes, outcomes, grant description, grant outcomes, and I'll say funder is at funder. Here we're getting like nested, 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 nested. Okay, so watch. I can do this. A summary for AI. Now I'm going to go over to funders and do the same thing. Okay, I'm going to say compose at funder at about location at location. All right, and this is now summary for AI. Now I can go back to grants, and what I want to pull into the summary for AI here is not funder. I'm going to say equals funder dot summary for AI. Okay, and now I can go back. I'm going to hide this because it is quite long and it throws off my table. I can go back to application sections, and now within the details where I'm drafting this, instead of saying grant, I can say equals grant dot summary for AI. All right, and now we'll see if that makes a difference for this context for the first question. Yeah, let's see. I guess maybe it belongs in the context, but maybe it doesn't, right? So the problem, let's go back to where we'd actually be doing this work, right? We're in funding applications. This one is actually we're drafting it, right? These ones, are those other ones nothing? Yeah, those are all just those fake ones I made for demonstration purposes. So if I'm looking at this application, I'm trying to draft this content. I go into here, I go into diversity. Here's the application, the grant, the requirement, the resources I'm going to use, and I'm going to draft the section. We'll see what it comes up with. It loves to reference stuff that you really shouldn't talk about. So it's bringing stuff in that it really doesn't need to talk about. And I might say using, please draft a section for a funding application titled, okay, I'm going to say to complete the drafting of this section, you may refer to the information below, but only use the information you need to address the funder's requirements. For example, you don't refer to the funders unless it will make this section stronger. Yeah, that's pretty light language. Right? I'm going to reduce this to 3 paragraphs because it's just like, it's making a lot of mess here. Okay, so there's some stuff in there that you could use, right? It's not bad. Maybe a good start. And so now back on your, if we put this over to the right, we can see more information. So right now we've got our sections here, and that might be enough where you can, use that to apply. Um, Probably what I would do is as we're sort of like exploring this grant. Oh, I didn't reference the program. Yeah, I didn't reference the program in this details section. So actually, sorry for starting that sentence, but my organization's information. Uh, the grant I'm applying for. I'm going to call this 3 and this 4. Let's say 2. The program I'm applying for funding for. I could get no way around that. So this would be equals funding application dot programs, right? But now what we need to do is go back to programs and create a compose column is summary at program colon at description period. All right, summary for AI. Go back to application sections, I guess. And this is now programs.summary for AI. Okay, Falco. Well, I tell you what, it isn't great, but even if you use this structure to write your own sections in here, the last thing that I want to be able to do is instead of just adding a section, because if you click this now, it's just going to pull in any of the sections that have already been written for other grant applications, right? So, but what we want to be able to do is instead of just like adding a new section here, you want to be able to look at the existing sections and then like copy ones in. And so I think what it would do is not just reference this existing section, but it would actually make a copy of it for the new funding application. All right, so to do that in funding applications, I need a column that is application sections, and it's all of them. Okay, so I'm going to fill it with application sections. I'll call it all. Now, I think what we want to do is make a new view of this, connected view, and say funding applications, um, selecting sections. Okay, so now this view, we want to pick a different layout, create a new layout, and we'll reduce this. I'm not interested in the deadline or the status or the draft application or any of that stuff. All I want to do is see these things and then be able to select which one I add. Okay, so here's something that I need to do in the meantime. This is running pretty long, but I think it's going to be pretty valuable. So I need a settings page. And on the settings page, I want to have a current funding application. Actually, I should have made that a heading. It's going to be a relation lookup, personal, and it's going to be called current funding application. It's going to look up to funding applications. It's a single select. I don't need anything else there because what's going to happen is when I'm in funding applications, what I want to do is have a button here that says, hey, let me like select my application sections. So we want to open row, this row, but we want to open the funding applications, selecting sections view. Select sections. I I don't know. Let's just make it a list. Oh, I saw check marks. List. There we go. Green. I think advanced. I don't want the pop up. Select sections. Okay, let's test it. Right. So that's it. Great. And what that looks like, just to get this all set up here before I do the big reveal. I move that up somewhere where I can see it. There it is. Here's another thing that I often do is I'll make a header column, header sections, and just put a formula in called sections, and then I can move that up here and take the label off and make it bigger and center it. Actually, I'll probably pull this thing up beside it, and I'll take the label off and push it all the way over. It's going to be a little bit ugly probably, but yeah. Right, section, oh, I didn't take the label off of it. Didn't I say I was going to take the label off it? And then I clicked something. I don't know what, center maybe. Yeah, select sections. And now what that does is open up this view, okay, which only gets us so far, right? But then what we can do is add, the section is here, funding applications. So I think if we so it's like okay. Here's what I want to have happen. There's going to be a button here, and that button is going to say um, modify rows, current funding application, and we want to take the sections, applications sections, and we want to list combine the current funding applications dot application sections with this row. Applications sections. All no application sections. There we go. All right. Because what that's going to say, first of all, I didn't update the button to push application section there. But anyway, what that button would do is let you push whatever's on here to the application. Right? Okay, so let me just try this. For now, I'll just make it green. I'll say that this button will say add to application. All right. These two we know are already there, so I probably don't want to do anything with them, but let's just say this one is called punctuality and ability to explain yourself, which is a reference to how I feel like I'm not explaining myself well at the moment. But so if I do this now and I click this, oh, object pass, oh, unidentified, right? So here's what I've done. I have created a button for funding applications to select sections, but it doesn't know what the current application is. So first I need to run actions and I want to do that piece. So the very first thing I want to have happen is to open that row. The next thing I want to have happen is to set the control value. Current funding application to be this row. Okay, because this row is still referring to the row that the application that we're on. Even after it opens this row up, it's still running the actions related to this button, right? So now we can see that what happens is if I select, it's going to open that view, but over on settings, it's pushed the name of the application to, um, I should really rename that. Um, workshops for artists. That's better. Okay, we're getting there. So I've got two sections in here now, right? But let's say I want to add more sections. So I select sections. If I want to add this, okay, one row modified, you can see what happened here is it automatically added the funding application to this row. And if I go back to that funding application, context, diversity, punctuality is now added there. Okay, but the problem is that is the actual same. There's only one row for punctuality, right? And what we want to be able to do is duplicate it. So first of all, if I take this add to application and I say disable if funding application, I'll do a formula. Funding application equals current funding application. Because that says, well, you can't add these ones because they're already there, right? And actually, I think I do need to say what this application is. Section draft programs. What is there? I'll put the grant down here. Funding application, I'm going to say. And unless a weird thing happens here, because it's the same table, like this is just a view of the same funding applications table, I can't I can't use the like back button to go back, where in this case, see, I'm in the funding applications. If I hover over the grant and click on it, well, now I can go back and get right back to there, right? But because this sections is just another view of the funding application table, I don't get that back button. So we need to put a little button to go back. Um, and we'll call this funding application select section layout. A button here to go back to funding application. And we'll just say go back. And I want no title, just some kind of go back. Do that one. Make it blue for navigation. And that's it. So then this one will just be open row, this row, but I want it in the DB funding applications table, right? Because that's where the main layout is. Okay, so now if I want to go back to the application, there I am. If I want to select sections, here I am. Okay, so now there's only one section left I can select, but I think here is the tricky bit is, again, I don't want to be just adding this same section. I want to copy it. So if what I say here is instead of modify rows current funding, I wonder if I can say duplicate rows, this row where I can try something. This might not work at all. But if I just say duplicate rows, this row, and then in funding application, put current funding application, will that do it? Yes. So then the problem is we've added it, and this ability to explain yourself is now a section attached to this funding application, right? And it's its own thing. If I put details in here, some details about my abilities, right? This those details are now over here. You can see it did not change the previous one, which is good because that one should be attached to whatever application it's attached to, right? Like I wouldn't want to have drafted this application or this section for this application and then have to write over it for this one. So that's fine, but I think what we want to do is also filter this so that any ones we've copied over are gone. Right, I no longer want to see. I no longer want to see this one. So what do I do? One thing I could do is this row. Okay, so if I say, I'm just going to try something, bear with me. So I'm going to delete this. And if I say add a column to funding, no, it's application sections. Allow multiple sections. And when this button is clicked, I want to add, uh, actually, I guess it only needs to be one. Right, so it'd be like section source, or like source section. So duplicate this row, but I want to add source section will be this row. So now when I add that, I cannot stand that pop-up. Boy, how long has this been? Oh my goodness, almost 2 hours. Okay. So now if the filter says remove the items that are in source section, filter subtable could not be determined. Edit the formula. db application sections dot filter where current value dot source section does not equal this row. Didn't work. Application sections for all. Okay. Let's try again. Wait, what was that thing? Source section does not equal workshop for artists. If I say because it's definitely current value source. I want to delete equals this row dot not. Ah, okay. Uh, all right. Current value dot source section does not equal this row. I got to be able to see it. So it should be filtering out, show me all the sections. Show me all the sections except, it should really be the ones that, and funding application does not equal this row dot funding application. DB application section. Oh, because this row is the application. Right. Right. So that's the problem. If I filter this table, it's this row is talking about this funding application. What I really want to say is only show me those application sections where current value, so I want to remove the ones where the funding application is empty and source section is in the group, is in funding applications dot source section. Okay, try that. Where source section is, my headphones are about to die. Where funding application, current value, funding application does not equal current funding application. And source section that funding application does not equal current funding application. Okay, well, I found it. Now I just want to get all of the other ones. If I take out this, if I just reverse these, I get nothing. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now if I delete this, ability to explain yourself. Applications. Okay, well, I think I'm gonna have to call it because I gotta get moving. Yeah, calling it. I hope the summary at the start of this video is explanatory.